Welcome to Card Corner. These are the cards, that's the corner. Today I got a couple packs of these Star Wars Empire Strikes Back Topps Widevision cards. They were released in 1995, so it is around the same time when they started putting these old Star Wars movies back in the theater with the special edition George Lucas versions. But it was before they actually made the prequel trilogy, so it's an interesting time for Star Wars. This is definitely when I was like really getting into it as a kid. So it was all the original trilogy, but none of the sort of newer. Some would say they're not as good. I've sort of come around on the prequels, but I definitely love Star Wars: A New Hope, especially, and Empire Strikes Back is pretty good too. I think a lot of people think that The Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie, and personally, I don't really agree with that. It is very good, but I have to give it to A New Hope just because I feel like the trajectory is more like self-contained and it's a bit of a better pacing, in my opinion. So I thought we'd check these ones out. I don't normally go for these wide vision cards just because it's so much more difficult to find like ways to store them and put them in binders. You kind of have to have like a specialized binder or carrying case just for the wide vision cards, which I find to be kind of unfortunate, but I found these for pretty cheap, so I decided to check them out. I do love Star Wars, especially from these movies, so worth checking out. Here it says a one-of-a-kind Star Wars art book, which I don't know, but I have to say it's probably not one of a kind. We can also get some chrome cards, so I think that's sort of what we're looking for here. All right, so the first one is exterior Hoth snowplane. Here he is shooting at that the reconnaissance droid. The dark probe droid has spotted Chewbacca, who, not 30 feet away, has popped his head over a snowbank. Instantly, the probe droid swings around, its deadly ray firing at the Wookiee, but before it can blast its target, it is hit from behind by a laser bolt fired by Han Solo and explodes in a million pieces. Looks like here we got some concept art, which is kind of cool. The Imperial Probot closes in on Chewbacca, unaware that a hidden Han Solo is closing in on it. An original storyboard by Ralph McQuarrie. So, my first look at these, I think the border is all right. It's maybe a little bit plain, but the thing that I noticed the most is that it's very grainy. It looks like maybe they lifted this from the VHS that they were re-releasing at the time. And they're all unfortunate, or I don't know if all of them, but this one is a screenshot from the film, which is fine, but usually I prefer to have something a little bit more targeted towards the actual promo pictures or like something made specifically for the cards. All right, here's the Snowdrift. Luke Skywalker is channeling the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi here. After slaying the Wampa with his lightsaber, Luke staggers out of the gorge into the dark and snowy twilight. Soon after, nearly unconscious, he looks up and sees the image of Ben Kenobi, barely visible through the blowing snow. It's hard to tell if Kenobi is real or a hallucination. I believe they've sort of retconned that to make it like he's an actual... he actually exists. I think he talks to Yoda at some point in this movie too. Luke, the ghostly image of Ben, intones, "You will go to the Dagobah system. There you will learn from Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me." Storyboard by Ralph McQuarrie. I checked this one out again pretty recently, so hopefully I can give you as much context as possible, though this is probably one of the movies that I've seen the most in general. I've probably seen A New Hope more, but I really like this one too. The letters, the font is kind of weird. They do the sort of drop shadow thing to make it so you can see it because the background is very busy, but I think it would have been better if it was just like more flat, sort of like this area. For some reason, though, this sort of layout seems very like mid-90s to me. All right, here we are on the asteroid belt, the Millennium Falcon. Not a very good picture of the Millennium Falcon. Oncoming asteroids on his mind, Han gives Princess Leia a quick look. You said you wanted to be around when I made a mistake. Well, this could be it, sweetheart. Leia stares at the deadly rocks rushing towards their ship. I take it back. We're going to get pulverized if we stay out here any longer. The Millennium Falcon gracefully avoids obliteration in the asteroid field, an original storyboard by Joe Johnston. That's cool. I like that they have the storyboards on the back. Give you two views of the scene. And here is the Millennium Falcon, Avenger, and asteroid field. I'm not sure if Avenger is the name of this ship. The Millennium Falcon banks, making a steep, twisting turn. In the next moment, it is racing towards the Star Destroyer, looking very small against the massive surface of the Imperial ship. As it moves across the surface of the Star Destroyer, the Falcon bobs and weaves to avoid the numerous flak bursts. In spite of 3PO's pleas, Han Solo continues his seemingly suicidal raid on the massive Imperial ship, an original storyboard by Joe Johnston. All right, here we get Bespin with the Millennium Falcon. Bespin was the name of the Cloud City. I had the Bespin version of Luke Skywalker when I was growing up, and the main feature of this action figure was the fact that you could like yank his hand out to like in his battle with Darth Vader where he gets it chopped off. But the thing that made that really good is that it gave it an extra point of rotation on his lightsaber hand. So you could like turn the lightsaber in ways where as normally you can only go like up and down at the shoulder. This one could actually rotate at the wrist, which made playing with it. It was my favored version of Luke Skywalker growing up. Nearly unconscious, Luke hangs upside down on the weather vane as his body shifts in the wind. Meanwhile, the Millennium Falcon dives to the underside of the floating city. 3 TIE fighters close in on the ship, but Leia remains calm. Slow down and we'll get under him, she tells Chewbacca. Attempting to rescue Luke, Leia and Lando pilot the Millennium Falcon directly below the floating city of Bespin. All right, speaking of Luke's hand, here is the medical center giving him his new fake hand. Looks pretty good, I gotta say. Oh, it's a different back here. Luke looks down at his artificial hand. A metallized type of bandage has been wrapped around his wrist. The medical droid makes some adjustments in a tiny electronic unit, then pricks each of Luke's fingers. The young Jedi wriggles his fingers, makes a fist, and relaxes it. His new hand is completely functional. 2-1B, the medical droid used by the Rebels as sketched by Ralph McQuarrie. Complex blueprints of this character were developed by Norman Reynolds. So, this guy's pretty cool looking. It was crazy back in the day. I remember how they would just basically make like action figures for every little, like this guy had one scene and they still gave him an action figure that to try to get your mom to spend $10 on. All right, here is the Cloud City gantry reactor shaft. Here he is learning that Darth Vader's his dad. Shocked at Vader's revelation, Luke stares at the Sith Lord in utter disbelief. Can Vader really be Luke's father? No, that's not true. That's impossible. The young Jedi shouts back in anguish, but Vader is insistent. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. Here's a production sketch. Don't know if he ever had this costume in the film, or if they even knew that it would be Mark Hamill. Looks like it was maybe just their idea of Luke Skywalker beforehand. All right, here is the reactor shaft. Here is like just before that last one there. Or maybe it's this one's after because he's actually falling. Nice shot there. Yeah, these are all very grainy. I think that it would almost be better if it was a bit smaller, so that they could use less, like they could make it smaller so you see less of the grain. I sort of understand what they're going for, though, since it's films. They're trying to make it look like sort of like a widescreen thing. Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son, Darth Vader tells Luke. The Dark Lord puts away his lightsaber and holds his hand out to Luke. Come with me, it is the only way. But Luke has made his decision. In the next instant, he steps off the gantry platform and falls into space. It's a pretty cool concept shot there. Vader corners Luke in the reactor shaft, about a mile in diameter. The shaft houses a number of facilities related to the manufacturing and processing of Tabana gas, an original production painting by Ralph McQuarrie. I almost wish that these were the actual cards, although there is that the Galaxy... is it called Shadows of the Galaxy? They got the one set that's basically like all like production stuff. So this one's good, I guess, because it's different than that. I'm not sure if they actually made... Well, I guess, yeah, back in the day, they definitely made Empire Strikes Back's cards that were regular size, but I don't think that they did in the 90s when they made the remakes. Here's the carbon freezing chamber. A huge mechanical, let's say, tong? Lifts the... A huge mechanical tong lifts the steaming metal-encased Han Solo out of the carbon vat and stands him on the platform. Some Ugnaughts rush over and push the block over onto the platform. Then they attach an electronic box onto the structure and step away. Lando kneels and adjusts some knobs, measuring the heat. Seeing Han is still alive, Lando shakes his head in relief. A tighter view of Han Solo suspended in carbon frees an original key set slide shot on the set. Definitely a very cool like constructed piece that they made for this set. The being frozen in carbonite is definitely one of the more iconic Star Wars things in general. I also had the Han Solo getting frozen in carbonite action figure, and that was cool because it was almost like two action figures. You had this little case that you'd open up and you could stick the Han Solo figure inside, and then he like looked like this on the outside, but inside it was just a regular figure. So sort of like a 2-for-1 there. All right, and that is the first pack. So I'm going to open this other one here. The one thing that I like the most about these almost is these the art on the front. I think that this one's pretty awesome. Very iconic shot of Yoda teaching Luke. And then this one also has the, is it AT-AT or ATSTs? They got these big walker guys. Another iconic scene from that movie, the escape from Hoth. And Shadows of the Empire, that was a big one at this time, especially on N64. On Nintendo 64, they had Shadows of the Empire, the video game, and the Hoth was the first level. And you could fly around these guys with the cable and pull them down, which was always fun. And then there was also some Shadows of the Empire comic books, but I mainly remember it for that video game. All right, here's the interior of the Ice Gorge. Here he's hanging upside down, waiting to get eaten by the Wampa. Captured by the Wampa, Luke hangs upside down, ankles frozen into icy stalactites. Exhausted, he spies his lightsaber lying near a pile of his discarded gear, about 3 feet out of reach. He focuses on the saber, and as his hand strains towards the weapon, he squeezes his eyes tight in concentration. 3 storyboards depicting Luke Skywalker's struggle to retrieve his lightsaber as he hangs upside down in the ice gorge. We hear monster's footfalls. Here's monster. All right, here's the Cloud City corridor. Here we've got the dismantled C-3PO being worn as a backpack by Chewbacca. Leia, Lando, Chewie, and the droids come around a corner and head for the door to the landing platform. The group ducks into an alcove as stormtroopers arrive at the end of the corridor. The troopers send a rain of laser bolts at the group. Chewie returns their fire as Lando punches desperately at the door's control panel. Originally, 3PO was still in one piece as Leia and Chewbacca attempted the rescue of Han Solo. Note an early incarnation of Boba Fett's ship outside the window. They have since disowned this ship. It used to be called Slave One. Now, if you buy the Lego set, they just call it Boba Fett's Starship. All right, and here is the gantry reactor shaft. That's a pretty cool set there. Swept away by incredible winds, Luke falls onto the gantry, rolls and hangs over the edge, holding his deactivated lightsaber in hand. He puts the sword on his belt and begins to scramble up. The first stage of his battle with Vader complete, he must now prepare for a renewed attack. A view of the reactor shaft with a section of vein visible. That's a pretty cool one. All right, next up is the landing platform, the Millennium Falcon on the Bespin Cloud City. Here's Lando going out to meet Han Solo here with his goons in the back. Lando Calrissian, a suave, dashing man in his 30s, leads a group of aides and some Cloud City guards rapidly toward the landing platform. The group, like the other citizens of the city, is a motley collection of aliens, droids, and humans of all descriptions. When the Millennium Falcon arrives, Han and Leia are met by Lando and his aide at the time. Ralph McQuarrie was doing this production painting. The character of the aide was not yet developed, and a woman was chosen as a possibility. Matt cameraman Neil Crepola shoots McQuarrie's painting of the Cloud City platform. Yes, so I believe all this is like a painting that they like superimposed onto the action. It's pretty cool. I really like how they did things back in the day before lots of CGI, a lot of cool models and background paintings. All right, next up we get the interior of the Rebel Star Cruiser in the medical center. This is at the very end of Empire Strikes Back, and they just sort of like are looking out into space, all forlorn, wondering what's going to happen. After receiving his artificial hand from the medical droid, Luke walks over to Princess Leia. There is a new bond between them, a new understanding. Leia is thinking about Han. Luke is thinking about his uncertain and newly complicated future. They join the two droids and stare out the window as the Millennium Falcon prepares to depart. Part of an optical taken from the film combines live action with model work. Yeah, so this is all a model, and they like superimpose it on top. Very cool. All right, here's another good shot of the walkers there. The ice plain battlefield. The battle on Hoth continues to rage. A giant AT-AT head swivels and fires, striking a snowspeeder and sending it crashing in a ball of flames. Elsewhere, rebel troops in the snow trench fire on the approaching walkers as snow and ice explode all around them. It's the Rebels versus the Empire on the icy plains of Hoth, as visualized in this original storyboard by Joe Johnston. Yeah, like for them to come up with all these like crazy designs, it's something else for sure. The snow speeder was one of they had those micro machines, so they were probably about like this big, little bit bigger than the card maybe. They had the snow speeder was the one that everyone seemed to have when I was growing up. That one and the X-wing, but I always thought those were really cool because the guys were like super tiny. All right, here's Darth Vader in the gantry reactor shaft. Vader has Luke cornered on the far end of the gantry. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father, Vader tells him. He told me enough, a hate-filled Luke shouts back. He told me you killed him. No, Vader responds in a chilling voice. I am your father. Director Irving Kershner was personally selected by producer-creator George Lucas to helm the second film in the trilogy. I had to believe in the reality of all the creatures and all the sets, Kershner observed in a 1980 interview. It's a lot of faith. That's a great shot of Darth Vader there. Very iconic voice actor in James Earl Jones as well. All right, here's a very close-up shot of Luke getting his hand chopped off. Freeze frame there. I feel like there's got to be something they could have done to clean up this grain a little bit. Vader's lightsaber comes down across Luke's forearm, cutting off his hand and sending his saber flying. In great pain, Luke squeezes his forearm under his left armpit and moves back along the gantry to its extreme end. Vader follows. Luke holds on. There is nowhere else to go. Prior to being sent to Norway for the Hoth sequences, this unique camera built in 3 months' time is checked out by special visual effects director Richard Edlund. So I remember seeing a documentary when the re-releases were happening. I was pretty young, but it always stuck with me how with the ships, what they did was the major sort of innovation, I guess, Star Wars made was when they were shooting the ships in the past, previously, what they would have done is they'd have the camera sitting here and then the ship would be like on a string and they'd kind of like move the ship along. But that always looked kind of hokey. So what they did instead for Star Wars was they had the ships mounted and they were staying still. And instead of moving the ships, they moved the cameras like over them to sort of capture their zooming into space. So very innovative there. All right, and we got our last card here. It is the reactor shaft gantry. Yet another Luke versus Darth Vader shot. I like that one for sure. Lots of action there. Got some sparks, and you got an awesome example of the sets in the background painting. Luke backs off along the narrow end of the gantry as Vader comes at him, slashing at the young Jedi with his lightsaber. Luke makes a quick move around the instrument complex attached to the end of the gantry. Vader's sword comes slashing down, cutting the complex loose. Darth Vader forces Luke Skywalker to the very end of the reactor shaft gantry. An original production sketch/storyboard by Joe Johnston. Another cool one there. All right, that is the last one. It does seem like they sort of were heavily weighted towards the Hoth and then the final battle between Luke and Darth Vader. It kind of sucks that I didn't get any cards with Yoda on them, which is the other iconic scene there. And then also, of course, maybe some Boba Fett would have been nice. But overall, I'd say it's a pretty nice set. It's always fun for me to sort of reminisce about this movie. Oh, there's Darth Vader, or Boba Fett there. Looks kind of fat, though. It's always really fun for me to go through these movies just because they are so beloved to everyone else and also to me. Definitely a big part of my childhood growing up, especially because they had those special editions that released right when I was like the perfect age to get into Star Wars. Anyway, let me know which card you think is the best. For me, it's probably, I don't know. I really like this one, but I also really like this Darth Vader too. Like the video if you had a good time. Subscribe if you want to see some more card related nonsense. This was Card Corner doing these Empire Strikes Back Topps Widevision cards. Take it easy.